Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossignol, and I'm excited for our next episode. We got Dan Runzler back for now our third session, and selfishly, I think I keep asking him to come on because I have a great time talking with him, talking pitching, talking baseball in general, and so he's our first three-time guest, and I'm excited to have him back on. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Matt.
No problem. Yeah, each time I think even just outside of the podcast, just when we talk and just talk pitching, talk baseball, learn something, and just good to be able to share ideas and ask you questions. And so I'm excited to do it again. So obviously, there's tons of new tools out there. There's tons of drills, tons of data. There's so much information out there on how to develop as a pitcher, but in today's topic, I want to talk about pitching development and three specific things: velocity, technology, and communication. And I think communication is a big piece that is lost when it comes to training velocity and technology. But we're going to start with the velocity side. And obviously, velocity is the biggest topic probably in baseball right now, especially, I mean, even at the big league level, but especially even more below it, just because they see everyone else throwing harder. They understand, gives them probably more opportunities. And it's obviously just a big piece of what, the pitching development. And so with that, I think, especially like here, we have a lot of high school kids. And so like understanding when to attack it, how to attack it. But I guess to just kind of start off, why do you think, one, it matters so much right now, and two, like how do we, although it does matter, make sure we're not putting it before other steps in the process?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you hit the nail on the head with velocity gets you in the door. I mean, not going to lie, it definitely is it's a big part of the equation. I think if you're looking at any other sport like football, they're looking at there's got to be certain qualifications to get you in. So like I understand that especially younger players want to get there faster. I think, like you said, and we'll get to the communication part, but the velocity part, like every kid has a different path on how to get there, and looking for big gains quickly is kind of it shouldn't be something that should be at the forefront. I think it should be done through like body movement, mechanical adjustments, like making sure your kinetic change locked in, you can get to a consistent delivery that maximizes your potential, and then through constant repetition, strength, throwing, like stuff like that, velocity will develop on its own. I think everybody wants the quick pace, and I get it, but the reality of the situation is every kid's different, especially young players. You might see a big jump one summer, you might not another time, but like if you're seeing consistent gains throughout, I think that should be the goal. But I know it's tougher. It's easier said than done. But the quick fix, I'm just going to jump 5 miles an hour in a month. Sometimes it happens. Those are the unicorn type guys. But also, too, if you jump so much velocity so quickly, that's where you can start to see some injuries happen because they're not doing it correctly. So I like slow, steady gains, if I'm being honest, especially with young players, because I think that means that their body's learning how to throw it, learning how to recover from it. Their arm and bodies are learning how to deal with the velocity in a smaller increment.
Absolutely. I mean, velocity, obviously, it helps raise your floor. It gives you more margin for error. So there is that, I think, what you said in terms of like guys that gain it too fast or before they're ready, like guys who, just have a really whippy arm, who maybe aren't haven't put as much time on the strength side, need to put on weight, and you see those guys make big jumps. Like you want to just make sure that their bodies are ready to be able to handle that kind of load on the tissues in the arm, and so it's easy to get caught up in what everyone else, or you see other guys doing, and there's so much, with social media, you see like, oh, this guy jumped 5 miles an hour, this guy jumped this, and so like it's easy to get caught up in that versus just focusing on what you can control. But with that, I think there's also a lot of people get velocity development wrong in terms of like how they go about it. So what would you say? What do you, in your mind, what do you see most often of people get wrong about velocity development.
Well, I think they go end all be all like a max like where bullpen sessions are surrounded on. There are days like nowadays. A great thing about training is there are certain times where you go for velocity training, but if you're year round going for max effort and trying to hit a PR every time you're in the pen, that's usually where stuff starts to go away. I mean, there should be deload weeks, there should be build, there should be a program that you're following, and then those weeks are a few sessions that it's time to go get it. Those are the times that you've trained your body to go get it, and then you see how you recover from it, and then you bring it back. So I think it's just making sure you have a process and you're following a routine. But I think the biggest thing is trying to go get it every time out is usually, I think, where you see guys take steps backwards.
Sure. And I think if you're a younger guy, a high schooler, even like a younger college guy, and you see, let's say, like a minor leaguer who's at the end of who like needs to make that big jump quickly, or even a major leaguer who's kind of like up and down, and needs to make that jump, like them being, for lack of a better word, a little more aggressive because, I mean, they're kind of on that last trying to make that jump so they can progress their career. But like a high schooler trying to make a big jump too quickly or being too aggressive with it, just understanding where you're at, what you need. And so I think that's one of the biggest things we see with the high schoolers is like they just want it now versus, and they see some minor leaguer or pro guy doing that and chasing it, but just understanding the circumstances are different. And it's, I think like there's so many other pieces on the velocity. It's not just going and just chasing PR. Well, it's not just going throwing max intent every time, you know, like you do your stuff in the weight room, you do your stuff on like how you move, movement quality, things like that. Those, you improve those things, and then you start focusing on like moving faster. And once you get into bullpens, and like that's when things can start to click. But if you're not hammering the other side with and just chasing on the throwing side, that's where we see guys, you know, they sometimes even go backwards just because their body can't withstand all that like high intense throwing without they haven't prepared their body for that.
Yeah, and I think like you said, like when this all links back to the communication is ironically those young players that want the velocity so much, like I bet you if you ask those pro guys that they're on their last ditch effort, they would trade places with them in a heartbeat to be able to build it as opposed to having to feel like it's got to come now or it could be over. So everyone's different in their career path and where they're at. So it's tough too being a young player and seeing a pro guy and he's like, man, this guy's going for. I'm just like, yeah, but he also has a lot more bullets under him that he's thrown. He knows his body a little bit more. He has a lot more wear and tear on his body. This is his last day in the sun. He's going for. Yeah. So like, but I guarantee you, all those guys would go back if they're like, if I could have had this training at 15, and been able to build and not feel like I had to do it now, who knows where you'd be. So I think that's a great communication to the young player that hey, like you want to keep seeing growth, but it doesn't have to be today or this off season or else it's over. Like you got time and the benefit of being able to develop on your hands, and that's something you can never get back as a ball player.
Absolutely. So just to give the people a little bit of an actual like not a timeline, but when do you think it is appropriate to focus on velocity, or let's for more of like the high school college kind?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's kind of a loaded question. I think it depends a little bit. I think you even have to revert back to how many innings this player has thrown from even the 12-year-old level. Like how much were they being used at that age? So you always kind of look back to what does their body of work look like. Now, if you go into a high school kid, if it's been 2 years in high school and you're coming into your junior year and you haven't seen a bunch of stuff and you're like, okay, like this might be the time to start because your body's developing, you're getting a better strength program under you. That could be the time to slowly, I think, start going for velocity. I would think that junior year feels pretty good to me. If you've pitched pretty consistently your freshman and sophomore year and haven't seen, you should see some just based off of growing, I would hope. But if you haven't seen enough or if it has kind of hit a stalemate, then I think you can start to kind of concentrate a little bit more in your off-season prep and whatnot. During season, I don't think it's a smart idea at all to try and train velocity because you're supposed to go out and compete, and if you're on the off time, just absolutely just bulldozing your arm and your body, what are you leaving for the mound? Sure. So, but I like that sophomore of sophomore or junior of high school, senior of high school. Like I think those are kind of two areas where you can start to focus a little bit more in certain times. Like it can't just be but it can't be the sole purpose of an off season. It has to, but you can spend a little bit more time there, but you still have to make sure your delivery is intact. You still have to make sure you have multiple pitches you can throw for strikes. So but it can be, I kind of liken it to a piece of the pie. It's like my big chunk this offseason is going to be 40%. It's going to be velocity training, but that leaves 60% of the other stuff.
Sure.
And like, or I'm really good at this, my times to the plate. So this can be 10%, but I still got to use that. So like using that piece of the pie, but like knowing as an athlete what needs to take precedent, but not thinking that's the entire pie.
Absolutely. And I think, just for us, like we have, one, like each kid like physically matures at different ages. Like, we have freshmen that look like freshmen in high school that look like freshmen in college, and we have juniors in high school that look like they're still 8th graders. So I think that's also a big piece of it for us is like, where are you like physically? Like, are you, because just to push it and you haven't like had any of those physical maturity growths, and then you're trying to push that, you're not setting yourself up for success. We also look at like body weight, strength, our force plates, things like that gives us some information. Like, yeah, maybe you do need to gain velo, but if some of these other things aren't in a prepared state for you to go chase that, you're going to be chasing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Like, you don't want to skip steps in it so that when you do need to actually chase velocity from the actual throwing side, that you've already haven't blown that out. So
absolutely. And like you said, these are young men that are, they're hitting growth spurts in like, like kids, like when they go into high school, they're going to, you don't know at what rate they're going to grow. No one does. Like, I went into high school at 5'7", I left at 6'5". Like, and sure. So like if I would have tried to start velo training at 15 while my body was still squirting through, like it could have hampered me in the future.
Sure.
So it's just like, as you grow, as you develop, it's like, how is your body moving? How much like functional strength are you putting on? How much mobility are you losing as you're going up? Like, but all this stuff kind of they're all pieces of that jigsaw puzzle that
Absolutely.
Creates the pitcher.
Absolutely. And so with velocity comes another big topic in baseball, and something that's it's only going to get more and more prevalent, but it's technology. And so when we're developing pitchers, technology is a huge piece of everything. Every let's say D1 school and up, any big training facility, they all have TrackMan, and then depending if you're going to a bigger D1, and every pro organization has TrackMan, Kinetrax, you name it, right? And so the technology is not going anywhere, but how we use it, I think, is a huge piece. And so I think one of the biggest things is like, well, first, how do you view tech in player or pitcher development?
Like I said, I think it's, for me, I like to use it more as a crutch, but not the main piece. I like to use how they feel throwing the baseball, and using that to verify how we saw them move, what their pitches are doing. If you're in a bullpen session and you throw a pitch and you stripe one and you're looking back before you, like every single pitch we're looking back, now our focus is getting away from that. Like, if you're looking back every few pitches, or if you're working on something specific, I get it. But if that's the only thing you throw on, and before you even, like, you're just solely worried on that's where it can get to the wrong side. It should be there to help. That's my view. And like you said, there's so many new things, and I guarantee you there's more things coming. They're going to find new stuff all the time that's going to help you. But how are you letting it control the narrative, or are you letting it just make you a more consistent pitcher? So I think it can never take away from the ability to compete, and the ability to, okay, I felt that one there. That one felt good. What was I thinking? What was I going through when I made that pitch that hit what I wanted to do? And can I repeat it again? Like, what did that feel like? Because on the mound, you can't go out there and be like, hey, I can't go out there and fix your vert in the middle of a thing. I can't go out there and I can't fix that. But if you feel something, how can you feel that to relate it to verify what you're feeling? So I like pitchers to know what it feels like to get to those numbers, so when they get on the mound, they can get there again, but with the feel of it, because we can't just look at an iPad when it's time to go.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings up another thing, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but like, and it's actually something I wrote about yesterday, is our job as coaches and your job as players to like be your best coach. Like make it so make it so you know your body, what you're supposed to feel, how it feels. So, because once you're out there, you only get one mound visit in inning anyways, first of all. And second of all, like the more you know your body, the best coach you can be to yourself, the more you can make those pitch to pitch corrections or adjustments so that, okay, I just made a pitch that wasn't executed, but now, or let's say the vert wasn't there and it's because I fell off, whatever. And then you can make that quick adjustment and boom, you're right back to where you want. But with that, I think tech is kind of what you're saying is like, just provides us the data. It's not telling us why it happened. And one actually kind of exactly what you were talking about. I was catching a bullpen the other day. I catch it and I throw it back and it almost hit the pitcher in the head because he was looking at the TV after he threw it. And luckily it missed him by about an inch, but he had turned his head to look at the stuff as I was throwing it back. And so, yeah, they get so caught up in that and what, like, want to see what the numbers are without understanding why those numbers are what they are. I think, and for us, and maybe something you do with your guys, like, what do you do when pitchers don't understand the tech? Like, how do you go about it with them?
It goes into communication because even the guys I get from the draft, like I get guys from smaller schools that don't really like, and they'll be honest with me. Like I have no, they'll look at the thing like I have no idea what these numbers mean, and I go honestly, that's kind of at times for me that's refreshing because I can kind of dictate the route that they go to look at the numbers that make them them. Like they don't know, they're not comparing themselves to anyone else. They're like I don't know what these mean. So I think when you're looking at it, but then I get guys who had tech throughout big colleges. And they come in and they're almost like, they get swallowed up by it. Like it's so much. Like every pitch, they're like, oh, that was half an inch off and this and that. And like so, I think it's the communication that like these are the metrics we're looking for on this certain pitch. And then you highlight a couple things. If they start looking at every single aspect of it, that's where I think they can go off track because you can dissect everything and you can make something look like a Hall of Fame pitch or a release pitch like but it could be the same pitch because of the way you're looking at it. So I think the communication of what each pitcher is looking for that makes that pitch elite for them so they know what they're striving for each time. But it should be the smaller you give them, the smaller of the plate, the more that they can still focus on that with just that, okay, that one felt like it, there it is. But I think it's about giving the information, especially for young players who don't know it. You don't want to go too far, too hard, too quickly. You want to show them, okay, when this happens, when you see this number inflate to here, something's really off. And they go, oh, okay. So then they know, okay, that felt good, but maybe we missed with it, but I was still in my parameters. Now it's about locating it. So I think it's just more for me giving them small pieces or small three categories that I'm looking for with a certain pitch, maybe two categories I'm looking for. But really dumbing it down so they have a simplistic view as opposed to going down a rabbit hole.
Sure, no, that helps them create some clarity of what they're trying to do and how to use it. How would you say you use tech to help players improve? And more, maybe even it's just on your side versus involving the player.
I think what I do is I look at certain things. Like I like to use like, not so much like a blueprint, I guess it's a blueprint for like a guy with a certain like release height, a profile of a pitch. I like to like see it in a certain range, I would say. And it can't always be the same range all the time, but I like to give a few inches, whatever, on each side, just to say, like, if we're in this range, this is this guy's arsenal. This is where we need to strive for. So if I start seeing bad spray pitches or off the chart stuff, then I know. But I like to use it for making sure that their arsenal with what they throw from their release height with their extension links up to them being like the most dominant pitcher with their stuff. So I look at it in that way. Like I don't want to dive too deep with certain stuff, even with some guys, but I'm like, okay, if they stay in this range, then we can get to, now it's like, okay, where do we command the ball with this range of pitches if they can consistently throw it in that bubble of what I give them. Now, if there's a bunch of sprays, then I can say, look, our release is way off. We're not consistently repeating, so we're trying to chase numbers. But you're 4 different release heights on certain pitches. We get a 20 vert to a 12 vert like on the same pitch, so like something's off. So before we sit there and start diving in and trying to see that we need to get to these numbers, you're not consistently repeating a delivery. So until we consistently repeat a delivery, we can't really dive into those numbers like we want to.
Absolutely, and that kind of helps or help players. I think if how we convey that to them and help them like see that, then they can start to understand, kind of back to like them feeling what's going on, and try to create some sort of feel, okay, that one, let's say you're a vert guy and that pitch for some reason had only 12 vert and more horizontal, like did you feel yourself fall off, whatever, like kind of creating some feel and some understanding of what they're doing.
Absolutely.
The last thing I want to say, or last question on this specific topic, in terms of technology, are you? Well, one, actually, I don't even know. With you, do you have that data on pitch stuff in game?
Yeah, we get it. Like we have it at all minor league places now. There's we have like either Hawkeye or TrackMan at every field.
Sure.
And so we get it in real time. Sometimes there's a pitch delay or something like that, but I keep the iPad close to me, and I don't like the pitchers to come in and look at it too much, especially at the lower levels, because I need to. But because I'm seeing it from the side, so like I can, I can't really see, but it helps me with the zone. It helps me with the shape and the velo and all the other stuff. So I can use that for like, okay, he's on right now. It's just we're missing here, or okay, his curveball today is not doing what we're going to do. What can I tell him in between innings that has nothing to do with, hey, by the way, you're not getting this on that. I'm not telling him the pitch numbers. I'm telling him, okay, we're not getting the depth. So, like, what can I – hey, in warm-ups, I want you to go out there, like, and feel this to lock it back in.
Great.
So I use it for me, and then the day after, I don't talk to him that night, but the day after, then we dive more into the numbers. But I don't let them, especially my young pitchers, I don't let them look at the metrics during their outing, like in between innings, because now we're getting away. It's like you're trying to go get outs, and these numbers go on the back of your baseball card. Like you need to go get outs.
Yeah.
We can do that, but if I can see something that's a little bit skewed, and I can have that communication in between innings to help him out, feeling something either mechanically or feeling something with a pitch grip. Hey, you're sliding on the side. Let's adjust the grip a little bit, or let's give more middle finger pressure on a curveball because you're slipping off, something like that.
Yeah.
Then they can maybe like tune it up during the outing, but I don't like giving them metrics mid-outing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was kind of referring to is, so if you did see it in game, are you like, you see something slightly off, like then using that to give them specific feedback of the correction that they can use in game without getting too deep or them worrying about that specific thing.
And then also not going too far into like I'm always in for like a quick, like it's more of like an explosive and aggressive term in between outings. Like I don't want to be like, hey, or it's like, hey, when that foot gets down, I need that foot to get down quick and then explode. Like, but not like, hey, like your stride length is too long. So now all of a sudden they start doing that. So I want to make sure that they're still thinking aggressive, competing with some of the trigger words I'm using without getting too mechanical with them, so they start over-analyzing before they throw the baseball.
No, I think that's important. I mean, really big on like using like metaphors and things like that with our cueing and keeping them more external versus internal.
Absolutely.
So
some guys are different. There's a select few that are really good internal, but push comes to shove, I start with external before these guys prove that they need that internal feel. But most of those internal guys are older and they know like that kind of
bodies,
stuff. But if you keep them external, it keeps them in that compete mode, and their body will sync up it's almost like once they click it back in. Like I'm just trying to get them to click back in.
Absolutely. Like I think it gives, especially for younger guys, and you know better than me, but like you give them those external, it gives them a focus and like gives them like an action to go get, and like even as simple as trying to chase birds, like, hey, I want you to throw this ball through focus on throwing through his face mask, and then their body stays more aligned, drives them in the right direction, and then they're able to get back to what they're able or what we want them to do. With all that, I think none of that stuff is important when it comes to at least the coaching side of it without the actual communication and how we communicate it to it. I think the best cues, the best coaching, the best program is not going to be effective without proper communication and for an athlete to understand that communication. So why would you say communication is such a big piece of pitching development? Or how do you see it making kind of like connecting it all?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think communication is the most important piece. It's more important than me teaching them a grip, teaching them how to, whatever, like an arsenal. Like for me, communicating, because if I communicate and I'm authentic in what I'm trying to communicate, they're going to respond to me. So for me, it's just more about how can I get this guy to believe in himself in my communication, whether it's I'm a big guy of kind of letting them know this is what you do really well. This is what you're doing well. This is where we need to clean up. Like I want to let them know that they're doing something well. It's not always no, that's not good enough, or it's not, hey, you're throwing to the backstop, you're doing great. Like we need to like find that medium where they know that they're doing something well, and this is what you need to work on. So I like to make sure that they see that because it's the truth too. Like
Absolutely.
some guys respond better. Some guys need the pat on the back, and some guys need the kick in the back. But it depends on when you do it. And these guys, and like the iPad doesn't have a heartbeat. These guys are out there. I remember what it's like to compete. I'll never forget what that's like. And I know when self-doubt creeps in and how it affects how I'm doing. So if I can give them some little pieces of this is what we're doing well, this is what we're going to work on, just a carrot to dangle to get them going, but also let them know like the world's not ending.
Sure.
This is all part of it, but how are we going to respond? Like you had a tough inning, like you're going back out there. It's over with. We can't change it, but we can go back out how we attack. As long as you don't give up on me out there or in the team, I can play. I can work with you all day.
Absolutely. Yeah. When it comes to, like, let's just say, and you talked a little bit about it. Let's and I was gonna say, like, communicating, the technology side. But let's just say, like, how would you say the communication and the velocity side matters, and how do you go about communicating, when trying to focus on that?
So I like to when I'm talking about trying to go get velocity with certain guys, like I try and have them do it at a lower clip. I like to have them start from the ground up, where like, and I like to ask these guys, and I feel it makes me feel old, but I'm like, please tell me you guys have played with Legos before, just to start at that. Like, oh yeah, I was like, all right. So if I asked you to build me a house, would you start with the foundation or the roof? And they all always say the foundation. So for me, it's like if we're trying to go get velocity starts from the power you have over the rubber, the ground force you're using, and then the roof is your arm. Like how can we whip it at the end? If we're death gripping the ball, because as soon as you tell a guy to go get a heater up top, like, and I remember the tongue starts hanging out of your head and you're ready to go attack.
Sure.
But it's like, how can I stay like athletic, powerful, but under control? And then you'd watch, like, can I be smooth while being powerful, as opposed to being like just all like grit and go? Because like the amount of energy they're wasting, whether they don't know, they might be just trying to rip into scap load, they might be death gripping the ball back here. They're wasting movement and energy. And so by the time they go get, like, I don't know why I'm throwing as hard as I can. I'm like, well, you're wasting so much stuff before you even let it go. Like it should still feel loose in the hand. So that's why I like to use, I'm a big proponent of the 90% feel over 100%. Because in my experience, a lot of these guys, when I tell them to go at 90%, they still feel aggressive, they still feel athletic, and they're not like wasting that time. And usually the velocity and the execution go up because they feel like they're powerful, but they're under control. And then that arm has that kind of bullwhip. Like I want it whippy at the end. Like if you watch all these dudes that throw, even the big strong dudes, watch how whippy those arms are. There is no tension in that arm, and so they're able to get into their natural delivery, get to that natural slack. There's nothing forced. They just fall into their delivery, and then they're strong at foot strike, and now we bring the house down. But you bring the house down with whip, not with strength, and the arm just is along for the ride.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. And I think that's definitely something, especially with our younger guys, is like getting them to understand that, and that's where the communication is. Like they're trying to, from their first move, it's like they're trying to throw 100 from there, and then they can't figure out why everything else is breaking down instead of like, yeah, it's like smooth, relaxed. I like to use like it's like an airplane. It's like slowly building up, building up, building up until takeoff, and that's where boom, then you go. And so, versus like it's more of an airplane versus like a rocket ship. You're not just going straight up, and so
I like that.
something we talk about with
What
our
do you
guys.
think about like guys that like? I had one guy I'll never forget. Like he was wondering why, and I'm like, he was squeezing his gloves. So like I'm like, you know how much tension you're causing right now in your front side before you eat. Like you're wasting all like now. And now we get the shoulder and neck tension, and now there's no part for you to be athletic. You think you're being athletic, you're being powerful, but you're not being efficient with your power. You're just wasting it, and you're wondering why. And then usually, like and then when they get like a nice smooth 95, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go get 96. And here comes 92 sprayed, because they go back to like over analyze, and then like there's so much tension. So it starts with how loose they are at set for me, like feeling no tension, the neck, shoulders, when you can see them kind of loose there, and then the legs start. It should be like it's a thing of poetry when you watch these guys just start loose and then just watch the body whip together.
No, it's really good, and I think it's definitely something that I think. The more you get these guys to understand that the easier the ball starts to come out, the less effort, at least in the mind, it feels. You're still putting a ton of force and energy into it when you're throwing harder. It's just understanding how and when, and the more fluid you are, the easier it's going to feel. And that's why a lot of times for me, and you probably talk about with your guys all the time, but it almost felt like, man, I just threw that one harder, and it felt way more effortless. Like,
and then the next day, you're like, man, I feel nice and I feel sore, but like in good spots. But I feel like my body and arm, I'm like, because you weren't using anything you weren't supposed. Because these guys understand too, velocity, adrenaline is velocity, and adrenaline is competition that you come. So like the velocity will come when a hitter steps in the box because the adrenaline spikes. But how are you using the adrenaline? Are you going to be advantageous with it, or are you going to use it negatively? Like, the guy in the box shouldn't change, I got to try harder. It should be like, I'm going to be smooth and watch what happens. And then these guys but it's funny, like you said, they'll be like, as I start to develop with guys and I get them for a long period of time throughout the season, they start to show me that they can repeat and do stuff. I used to be like, okay, today we might have 90 pitches as the cap, and we're going out there. I'd be like, I'll give you 10 pitches today to get on it. Whether that's an 0-2 breaking ball, 0-2 heater, whatever you want, I'll give you 10. But other than that, we go back to 90% for everything else. And it was great because I had a couple guys this year that come in and be like, he's like, I wasted all 10, and by the second inning, I'm like, all right, well, then you're done. But I had guys go great outings where they're like, I didn't even get on one today. And they were in there in the 7th, and they were punching dudes out, and they were sitting at their highest velo, and they were able to throw any time. I'm like, because I told you, don't, like, there's times to go get it if you need it. But, like, you don't need to go get it every time. But I'm not saying to sit there and lob it in there. But, like, that's what sometimes they're like, I'm like, 90%, like 90% is a big thing, because it's, if you're using 90%, like I said, I just feel like it's so much more functional.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And because of the tension piece and all that 90% might even still be 100+%, but they're not tensing up really, wasting this, actually wasting energy. And so, but that cue of that like 90%, and it's like your body's knows when it's time to compete. It's gonna go into that flight response of like, I just gotta go get it, and like it'll turn on. You're not gonna actually throw 80-90%. Like your body's not gonna, like,
and that's my point too. I know that they're not throwing at 90, but in their mind they are.
No, 100%.
And that's what I'm trying to do, is show them that that's exactly what I'm trying to get.
You're like 100%. It's more of just like getting them to understand, like, just because you're throwing doesn't mean you're not trying 100%.
Exactly.
And so I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, well, why would I only try why wouldn't I go 100%? It's just getting, and the younger guys are the harder ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So. Last thing, what separates good communicators from great ones?
I think it's the ability for, even on my side, to admit when I'm incorrect and be authentic, like, throughout. Like, it's I always like to say it, especially in pro ball with these guys, is that I'm like, it's a collaboration. Like, I'm not telling them like, do this or don't pitch type thing. It should be, I need to figure them out. Like, I need to know about them, where they're coming from. So for me, it's the authenticity and then being able to be like, okay, let's try this. If it doesn't work, we can figure something else out. Like, I'm cool with that. But right now, I don't need you to. I think the best communicators are the ones that separate themselves, are willing to, one, admit fault, and two, be authentic. But it's a collaboration, because if they tell me this doesn't feel right, great, we can figure out something that makes it feel right. But I don't want them to feel like it has to be my way or no way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a big thing with that, I don't know, along those lines, like, I think one of the biggest things when it comes to communicating is like how simple we can make it. One, and two, not giving 10 different cues at once. So I think that's something that's like, okay, then guys just get confused and now they don't know where to. It's like, can I just give one really good cue or one main thing to focus on, and let's have that be the focus, and then we can go from there. And usually a lot of those, if you find the one actual lowest hanging fruit, it'll clean up a lot of those other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think these guys need, like, I'd like to have guys have one or two. Some guys need 3 cues, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't, after, when a guy doesn't execute, I don't want, like, what'd you feel there? And they give me 7 different things, and I go, that should never happen. You shouldn't tell me 7 different things you feel when you threw one baseball. It should be, I felt this, okay, but I like the 1 or 2 cues, 3 at the most, but I do like to keep it as simple as possible.
Great. How important do you think it is for pitchers to understand and communicate what they feel?
I think that's what makes great communicators is what helps great coaches. If you're authentic and you let them feel that they can be vulnerable, and that I'm not going to judge you because of it. Like, oh, I did this because I was a little like, I prefer when guys are like, I'm scared right now to miss with a pitch. We can work on that.
Absolutely.
I know what that feels like. Like, I'm not gonna look at you any different. I don't think that it doesn't make you strong or anything like that. But if I'm gonna be as honest with you as I can be, with no qualms, I need you to be honest with me, or else we're never gonna get to the spot. We're gonna go through the ups and downs together, and I let them know when they fail and they fall down, I'm not gonna be there to pick them up, but I'm gonna stand right next to them when they pick themselves up, and then we're gonna take steps together. But to let them know they're going to fail, it's okay. But this is all part of it. But if they're not fully vulnerable with me, like I'm going to be vulnerable with them, we're not going to get to the best piece we can with him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a huge piece, is being able for those players to have the ability for them to come to you, talk to you about it, and let you know what they're feeling, not just hold it in because they're afraid to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, and I get it. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and internally a lot of stuff affects what you do externally.
Sure.
So if there's a lot of self-doubt, there's terrible talk going on before each pitch. It's like, let's attack that before we start attacking your delivery right now, because you're just waiting to fail, or you're convincing yourself to fail. Then you come off like, I knew I didn't feel good today. I'm like, well, you already set yourself up for failure. So let's attack that side that will watch you leak into the confidence and into the aggression and into the execution. But sometimes we have to attack in between the ears, which a lot of the times you do with pitchers, because there's so much, for right reasons, there's so much fear of failure. You don't want to embarrass yourself or your team or your coaches or the fan. There's so many emotions going wild.
Sure.
So it's like, how can I control that? How can I block it out? What can I focus on to just compete and execute? And but there's different tools to do that. And if that's somewhere we have to start with, let's do it. If that has to be like what we have to tell ourselves before we throw the baseball. What am I saying? Like, I was a big guy, and it took me a while. I was nervous all the time. But it's like, I was always to the point where I would be like, towards the end of my career, I remember hitters telling me, like, I'd see the finger back before pitch comp. You had to see fingers, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But I'd see the fingers go down, and I would look down, and I would out loud yell attack. And it started to get louder as I got going, and hitters in stadiums with less players could be like, this dude's talking to himself. But I had to look down, yell attack. I knew what pitch was going. I'd look up and go. But that was for me to not overthink. But that got me in the right mindset to do it. Obviously, it took me a while to get there, and that's something I wish I would have learned when I was younger.
Sure.
If I'd have learned the mentality of it, I think with the physical ability I had at a younger age, but I think that's something you learn as you throw more pitches.
Sure.
But I think it's something you can learn earlier now if it's addressed. But if I'd have learned how to handle myself, how to believe in it, how to convict before I threw, I probably would have saved myself a lot of heartache and a lot of really bad outings. That way, you're still gonna get your butt kicked sometimes. It's part of the game. But it's like, how was I talking myself before I even threw the pitch?
Sure. No, that's a huge piece. Well, all this, I think the biggest thing here is all three go hand in hand, especially communication and velocity, communication and technology. And so I think they're all very, very important from both sides, the coaching side and the athlete side. And they don't work in isolation. So velocity gives you tools, tech gives you the feedback, and then we have to be able to communicate, put it all together, and from the coach side, diagnose it to communicate what we want to, how we're going to make the changes.
Yeah.
So.
And I think like in like you could say, what I like to do sometimes, and you're more than I'm more than happy to let you use it if you want to. But with each young pitcher I get, like as I get to know them, I give them a circle with a pie, and I give them different like nutrition, sleep, delivery, velocity, shapes, execution, and I make them draw which pieces they're really good at to where they think they need the most work to where they feel like they're solid at, and I get to see what they think of themselves. Where it's like, okay, like, you know, there's some guys like 50%, I need more velocity, and I'm like, okay, and then you're leaving the next 6 things open for half of it. It's like, that's a big piece.
Sure.
Like, so I like to see where they're thinking, because then if I see what they're thinking, then I can address certain things. Otherwise, like, well, we're putting too much emphasis on this because your delivery's out of whack. We're not getting to the velocity you want, but also you're not very good in the weight room. Your nutrition's kind of off, and you're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
So like this all part. So like if you give them the piece, they get to make their own pie. It's kind of a fun thing, and then you get to see what they think of themselves, and then you can kind of maybe redirect, like, hey, let's take a sliver out of this and put it over here.
100%. Yeah, I always call it like the holistic approach, just making sure we're focusing on all different things. I think you touched on it there a lot, or in that with, I mean, I think the sleep, the nutrition, and even the mental game, like those 3 pieces have a huge impact on the performance and like velocity. Like if you're not sleeping and eating well, and then you want to try to increase velocity, you're not setting yourself up for success. So they all go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And those are the hardest pieces sometimes and that might be where you need the most work. Like I do everything else right, but you're not sleeping right and you're drinking a ton of soda. It's like, so you're not putting your body, like all that hard work you're doing is negating what you're trying to get
Absolutely.
to. And the ones, and I know that all the guys you have here, they see themselves throwing, you know, on TV, and the way they work here is great, but like those sacrifices are part of it. Like that's why those guys you see on TV are up there. They are relentless. And so it's a good learning curve, I think, for them to really understand.
I mean, the guys that are here that are on TV, you see the sacrifices that they make compared to some of the younger guys.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, it's totally. You have to be willing to make those sacrifices. You have to understand, like, you're gonna have to make some choices that might not be 100% what you want to do, but if you want to get to where you want to get, like, there's gonna be some sacrifices.
Yeah, you cross that line, especially when it's like the pro side, like you cross that line into like obsession a lot, where like you're obsessed with those things all the time, and it becomes like I have to do it or else like I'm not going to be there anymore. You never feel like you're a fully finished product. Like, and if you have that drive the whole time and you're like, I'm obsessed with doing this all the time, usually you find yourself peaking at places that no one else thought or even you thought. But as soon as you feel like I did it, you'll find yourself coming back. So I think that's like that obsession of like doing stuff the right way when nobody's, and like, you know, use that term, like what you do in the dark shows up in the light. So you say you're doing it right, but you're not like, I'm just not seeing results. Like something's not off, because if you're doing all this like you say you're doing, we would see more.
Sure.
We would see more stuff.
Sure. And I 100% agree with that. One thing I want to say, just especially with having younger guys, it also isn't going to click overnight. Like sometimes you have to have their patience. Like you can't expect each let's say off-season bullpen session to see a 3-mile-an-hour jump in velo. Like it's just, so yeah, you need to stack all this stuff that you're doing. You need to stack it over a little bit of period of time to where you see some consistent progress. But you can't like eat good for a week, do all this stuff for a week, and then I didn't. Why did my velo go up?
I'm with you too, and I didn't want to like specify like that's like, I'm just saying I was showing the finished products, but like, yeah, like, but you're gonna have your failures. Like, you know, you're gonna mess up and eat something bad or do, like, that's part of it. But like you can't just it's all over. Like, no, it's like it's a habit that you're trying to. But like you're gonna have your setbacks, just like on the mound. You're not gonna. There's going to be days where you feel fine, but your velocity is a little bit down. That had nothing to do with your nutrition or sleep, but that's just part of being a human being.
100%.
So you got to understand that you're going to have setbacks, but as long as it doesn't affect the way that you go about it and you're like, okay, I'm getting right back up from it, it'll probably teach you when you're on the mound, when you have a guy hits a double off you, it's like, okay, I didn't execute a pitch. Here we go again. So it just shows you like, yeah, I'll take a step back just for that one meal, or I didn't sleep well, but watch me do it the next day. Like, so for me, I think that that's all part of it, and that's the beauty of the game, but also understanding that you're not going to be perfect all the time.
Absolutely.
But it can't, one bad thing that happened doesn't define, like, oh, like, I'm not good anymore. It's like, no, that's part of it. Get back up, do it again. Like, you'll be okay.
Absolutely. This has been awesome. I think that's one thing, like, we not just chasing one thing. It's all these things have to come together. And you have to understand when it's the right time to attack these things. With that, communication is always important. So I think it's the most important of all three.
And that links into that communication links into like the biggest word I've seen thrown around mostly in the last few years, which I love as well. But if there's constant communication from the coaching side and the player side, accountability is already there.
Absolutely.
And I think that links in. Accountability is a result of communication.
Absolutely.
Because if you say, yeah, I messed up or I didn't do this, bam, it's accountability. Bam, okay, let's fix it.
Absolutely.
We don't have to dwell on it. Let's just move on.
100%. Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Dan, for coming back on. This has been awesome. As always, great information. I always learn a ton. I think this is very valuable for parents, especially of the younger guys, the high schoolers and college guys. And that's our main goal, is giving you guys that information so that you can apply some of this to your training. But Dan, thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Of course, as always, and good luck as you
Appreciate
get
it.
going
Thank
here
you. Yep.
the season.
So
Yep.
excited.
Spring training is
Around the corner.
Well, as always, development's the number one thing here, and this is all about, especially today's episode, is all about pitching development. So if you have any questions about pitching development or want to learn more, you can always reach us at rossistraining.com and on Instagram at rossistraining. Thanks for watching or listening. Till the next show. Thanks. Bye.